What's up, everyone? Welcome to the My Favorite Horror Movie podcast. This is your host, Christian Ackerman. Thank you for joining me today as we welcome three badass actors and some of my favorite people as we discuss the dynamics of gender in horror films through the eyes of the final girl character trope. First off, if you like this podcast, take a second and click like right down below. Or give us a subscribe or a rating. Give us some stars on iTunes, wherever you are right now. It would help us greatly and inspire me to do more of these episodes. During these wild times, I'm finding great joy in being able to discuss the genre with my friends. And since we're unable to hang out, mostly unable to hang out in person, I'm happy to have this outlet to share these discussions with you guys. This is actually the first episode I've recorded in over a month. For some reason, I felt a little uninspired to do an episode, and I took some time to coordinate about 60 plus of the My Favorite Horror Movie contributors. We did a signing in support of Black Lives Matter LA, where we raised $1,900 with the help of all of you. So thank you all for ordering the copies. Thank you to the contributors who met with me to sign. Thank you to Blast from the Past in Burbank, California, who gave us a space to kind of get together, and I scheduled everyone apart, and I spread all the tables apart, so we had a very distanced signing that was non-public. So it was great to see everyone, have a good 5 minutes to talk to all of those people, to reconnect, to figure out what they've been doing during this whole time, and hopefully we'll be able to bring on more people for this podcast. It took a lot of energy out of me, so but it was a great feeling to contribute to an organization that's working to bring equality to the forefront. Besides that, somehow the My Favorite Horror Movie books had a great sales month in the last month on Amazon in June. It was a fun experience bringing all these biographical essays to the masses. So I want to thank you all for picking up copies. Head over to myfavoritehorrormovie.com to find out more information on the contributors and to figure out where you can buy these books. So let's get into the episode with the veteran final girls, Trista Robinson, Sarah Nicklin, and Lara Jean Sullivan, all of which are wonderful actors and good friends of mine. Make sure to check out their work when you can. Search them out. Find their work. Most of their movies are streaming. You can probably find them for free. Just search them out because they're all great actors. So, all right, let's get right into it. All right, our first guest is an actor who can be seen in the short film Hell's Bells, or actually my short films, Hell's Bells, The Summoners, and along with the new films Echoes of Fear and Purgatory Road, her favorite horror movie is The Evil Dead. Let's welcome Trista Robinson. Woo! Hi, Trista.
Thank you. Happy to meet you.
Hey. Next up, we have an actor who is known for None of That, The Haunting of Alice D, and Exhumed. She just finished shooting the films The Retaliators, short film Jacob, directed by our friend John Fitzpatrick, and the music video for a band I Prevail. Her favorite horror movie is The Exorcist. Well, let's welcome Sarah Nicklin. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Woo. And lastly, we have another actor who can be seen in To Jennifer, produced by yours truly, and the festival darling short Trust Issues, where she won a ton of awards in acting. I saw it. It's great. The newly released Space, I think it just came out a couple of months ago, and she's currently filming our friend Hunter Johnson's latest film, Terabella. Her favorite horror movie is Misery. Let's welcome Lara Jean Sullivan. Woohoo! What's up? Okay, let's check in with everybody. Let's start with Trista first. What have you been doing? I know I got to see at least two of you. Wait, Lara Jean, I didn't see you recently, right? Yeah, you haven't been around, but when we did our book signing, I at least got to see Sarah and Trista. Trista, what have you been doing lately in this quarantine?
Yeah, I've actually been able to safely be working lately, so that's good. Before that, I was working from home, reading scripts and stuff. So yeah, just as you guys, I'm sure, keeping busy, just working as much as I can, being safe first
Yeah.
and foremost. Yeah.
So what kind of work have you been doing?
I shot something with Linnea Quigley this past weekend, and then I shot out a western. I did a western feature.
Really?
And then I've been location scouting for an upcoming film too. So
Oh,
I'm working. Yeah.
are you producing that?
No, I'm just I always kind of do a little more than act, but I don't always. You know how it is with independent films.
Yeah.
Sometimes especially when filmmakers are your friends, right? So these are very good friends of mine. They actually did Echoes of Fear, so we're gearing up to shoot another film, and some of the locations are really interesting and exciting. So because they're some of my closest friends, I'm a little more involved.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Laura Jean? What you been up to?
I have been up to a lot. I feel like when quarantine happened, I became more inspired to do more things on my other side of the art form that I've been doing for most of my life, which is choreography and dance.
Yep.
So we had a film, Terrabella, which you announced at the beginning of the show, that we were supposed to film in May, and obviously it got pushed back because of quarantine.
Yeah.
And now we're currently in production for that, and we're going to be finished filming. We stopped because of the new COVID thing going on in Los Angeles, so we're going to be filming that, finishing that in August.
Okay.
But during that time, in the middle of my time, I've actually been teaching free classes for kids throughout the world, and getting donations, and all my donations have been going towards hospitals and more PPE for those hospitals and things like that. So I've been doing that, and then I also raised $13,000 with my husband for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which was really cool. So we did all that during quarantine, cool. And staying busy, making sure everyone's healthy, and making sure money's going to the places that it needs to go to. And I adopted a dog during quarantine.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so excited. I'm lucky that I have this film project that I'm working on, because most people aren't filming at all. So luckily I'm still active in doing that. And I actually have a call back for another feature this week, Crossing Fingers. That is going to be really it's a comedy horror film. So it's nice to be doing something different and getting more involved in comedy, which is cool.
Yeah, that's up my alley. I like the horror comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the money that you were raising for cancer, where did that go? Like
it went straight to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it went straight to them. Basically, my husband was nominated for Man of the Year, and everything for that got stalled because of quarantine. And we were like, you know what? Fuck it. We're still going to raise money. We're still going to do this. We're still going to try our best, even though a lot of people during quarantine don't have a lot of money, but we still kind of reached out. And people were able to give as much as they could. And right now, obviously, as you guys know, people with diabetes and with cancers are more prone to getting sick. So they need money more than ever right now, especially the money that we raised went towards a 5-year-old boy that needed it. So, yeah.
That's great. And you've been spending your time up in San Francisco area?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Because you kind of split your time between both places, LA and San Francisco.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I actually was down in LA for a couple weeks recently, and luckily my sister lives down there, so it's really nice whenever I go down there to film. I get to spend time with my family, get to spend time with my friends, and it all works out. But yeah, now I'm in San Francisco, the city by the bay, keeping cool, keeping awesome. And actually they're building a few more. I know Sony is actually going to be building new production company buildings here on Treasure Island. They bought out Treasure Island. So they're making that a whole film section up here and trying to move some of the stuff out of Los Angeles. So pretty cool, exciting stuff happening here. I'm lucky that I'm able to kind of see it firsthand, see it happening, which is really cool.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
And I always think that it's really cool that you got to be on Broadway. You did The Lion King
Yeah, I did.
and,
Yeah,
as
like
a
years
dancer.
ago.
Yeah.
And I also got to tour with Sesame Street and
Uh,
puppeteer as Elmo. And with Lion King, I was one of the hyenas and
uh,
puppeteered as one of the hyenas and sang and danced and with them. And yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm actually thinking about hopefully when all this COVID stuff clears up, and because Broadway is closed till 2021. I'm kind of hoping to get myself back to New York and re-audition for a few Broadway shows after COVID and do a few things out there for a while again, which would be really cool.
yeah.
And eventually, if you guys are interested, I would love to do a horror musical. And anyone
Ooh.
listening, if you want to put money towards it, we would love that.
Yeah, I've actually been talking to a friend of mine about doing something like that. So we'll talk. We'll
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
I have a musician friend that I'm like, oh, your music is kind of up that alley, and he's like,
Oh,
yeah, I've always
perfect.
wanted to do it. So let's talk about it. So
Yes, I'm down. Let's do
uh,
it.
yeah. And Sarah, what have you been up to?
I've been staying inside.
Yeah.
um, no, I just finished filming a film in Vegas called The Retaliators. So it's being there's a music label that's decided to start making films, and so they made Motley Crue's The Dirt that came out next year. So this is going to be their next film. And so they're putting a whole bunch of their bands in it, and going to license the soundtrack with all the music from their bands and sell that. And so that was pretty cool and fun to go out there and do that. That was the first thing that I filmed since COVID happened and since quarantine and everything shut down. And that whole experience was really, really interesting to see the changes with all of the testing and that you have to do now to get on set and like keeping everyone separated. And it was really an eye-opening experience. So I thought that was really great to be able to go and work and learn from that. I'm also producing a feature at the same time, which we were originally going to start shooting in April, and then obviously all the shutdowns happened, and so we have pushed our shoot dates back. We don't have a start date yet, but I've still been working on that to get it fully cast and to get all of our crew members together. We already have our location set, which is great, but this is the first project that I've done where I'm like legit producing.
Yeah, that's great.
Because like Trista said, on independent films, you do a little bit of everything here and there, and so like other projects in the past, like I've helped them get made, but it wasn't where like, okay, you are the producer on this project, and that's like all of your responsibility. So that's been a huge learning experience as well, and I've been really thankful to have that because it's been really eye-opening about a lot of the things that happen behind the camera, even before you get to set, that I might not have been aware of as an actor.
Yes. And what are you learning? Like, what's something that you didn't know before as just being an actor on set?
I mean, well, first of all, just the SAG paperwork.
Yeah.
So
I know you had asked me for some advice on that. So
I did. Yes.
Did you get the process started, or was it just you haven't done it yet?
Yes.
You started at least.
We started it. So we have our contract open with SAG. But then all of like when the guidelines were released, went to them and we're like, what do we do? How are we supposed to like do this? Like, this is a low budget project.
Yeah.
These 37 pages of like guidelines, there's like no way. And they were not terribly helpful in telling us how to do that. But I learned a lot from the project that I was just on, and their health safety officer and like COVID supervisor, and like, so I'm learning from that, and I'm applying it to the project that I'm producing so that hopefully we can get that moving forward. The only issue is that we have a big crowd scene at the end of it. It's set in the 1960s, and it's a horror musical.
Oh, really? Nice.
And so at the end is a big musical number with a big crowd scene. And so with COVID and all the regulations, that's like super difficult because we just can't have that many people on set. Like you just can't. So we're kind of in a holding pattern for that. But other than that, I have a short film that's I've been working on for a little while now, and I've been working on storyboarding that.
That you're going to direct?
I don't really care if I direct it or not. I just want it to get made.
Okay.
So, um, I want to act in it. It's a medieval dragon fantasy film, which is like that's what I love more than anything is like fantasy films. And so I wrote it and I know like what I want it to be. And so since most of it takes place inside of a cave, I would have to either find a location or build an entire set. So if I'm going to build the set, I need to know what those shots are going to look like. So I need to know what I need to build. So that's
I think Trista lives in a cave, right, Trista?
You look like you're in a cave.
Yeah, but that sounds fun. Like, so you would have to do some sort of a CGI dragon or something, right?
I would want it to be a practical dragon. So for the short, you would only see like its muzzle. You wouldn't actually see the entire full dragon. It's a short / proof of concept for a feature. And the feature, you would see the entire dragon.
Okay.
But just for the, budgetary constraints of a short film with a dragon.
Honestly, sometimes it's even better, Some of the best films out there, they leave you guessing. And I love films that leave me guessing. Like I don't want to see the whole thing. And especially sometimes with like kill scenes and, when you don't see blood and you just see the body getting dragged and then it's off scene, switch up. I'm like, wait, what just happened? You want to know. And it's kind of like a book where it leaves you kind of being able to go into your own mindset of like what the director or what the writer wanted from that, It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like Jaws, all the problems that they had with the shark and it worked out so masterfully because you like never see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Less is more. The more you let people fill in the spaces with their imagination and their mind, the better.
Yeah.
And how was it for all of you guys? How was it on set with? Because you've all been on set. I haven't been on set, I guess since December is the last time I was on set. So, what are the COVID restrictions like for you guys? What did you see and notice going? Oh, that's way different.
Just being distant. Like even like when you see people, it's hard to not put your hand out or not go like this naturally.
Hug
we're all at an age, and I'm sure our parents feel the same way, where giving a hug or shaking a hand is just a natural form. It's in our blood. It's our instinct.
Yeah.
So I think that was the weirdest thing for me, is being distant from my co-star, having, when we're not on the scene, we have to remain distant. We have to kind of remain like we're like doing our rehearsing, far from each other and, constantly washing our hands. It's weird, and having to take the tests every so often. Like now, in order to go back, because we have to put on hold, we have to retest. We have to do these things, and so it almost makes it more stressful, And for me, as an actor, I know Netflix announced that they're like taking out all the like kissing scenes and emotion. And then fight scenes too. Anything getting close, like grappling, things like that. They're taking all that out. And so same with us, like, we had some intimate scenes going on and we got to rethink it. We got to, okay, now how can we, almost like an art piece going back to college 101, how do we make it look intimate without being super intimate, And that's the challenge as the actors too. Like for me, I was always like, I love like getting into the person's face and getting close, and the character that I'm playing now, there's a lot of times where I'm like almost have to breathe on her, and like how do I do that without doing that? Like how do I make it look like I'm close and breathing on her and like almost getting my spit on her without actually doing that? But that's why we all get tested. So but you also have to remain distant after you get tested. So that's the hard thing. You have to stay home. You have to quarantine yourself. I think being an actor, being a performer right now is probably one of the hardest jobs because you do have to obey the rules. You have to 100%. Otherwise, you're just going to end up getting somebody sick or hurt. at the end of the day, and it sucks. Like, I don't want to be that person, you know? Like, that somebody's sick. I'm going to go home and just like, I got like my co-star's Devaney Pinn. And I'm going to be like, I got Devaney Pinn sick. I don't know what to do. You know, it's like so emotional. You never know. It sucks.
Well, or not being able to work. Like, if you test positive, I mean, like, oh my God. Like, that's just, I mean, we had, on our first day, we had one of the crew members test positive, and so we lost that entire day because everybody went home, and they had to retest everyone again. And so, like, could you imagine as a cast member if you tested positive, like, you can't be replaced. They'd have to like rewrite the entire script.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you have such a responsibility as an actor to be safe and like not go out because you could bring down the entire production.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a shame.
Yeah, and like with this project, like we already shot some of it. So for me, at least for my part, you know, so it's like I'm more like I have to be safe because it's like if you get sick before the next time we start shooting, we have to push everything back, and then everyone loses money. And so now I'm like, okay, what do? I'm wearing gloves. I go outside. I wear gloves every day. I change out my gloves every day. I wear a mask. I wear glasses. Like, there's certain things I'm like, okay, I have to make sure I don't get sick in a month. I have 3 more weeks. I can't get sick.
Well, that's good. That's great. That it's also you all want to have your crew members safe because that's and it's when it comes to like the rest of the country that isn't wearing masks, I think it's a gigantic lack of empathy for people, and so that's what all 3 of you guys have is it's nice to see. It's just strange why people are not wanting to wear masks. It's like. And they're just listening to people that are just morons tell them these things, and they believe it all, and so many conspiracy theories. And
I mean, I get not wanting to do it. No one wants to do it. No. It's not like we're not like, yay, let's go put on our masks today. You know,
especially when I'm working out. Like sometimes I'm working out and I'm just like, because I have like I can't really breathe through my nose sometimes because I have really bad allergies in the summer, and I'm like, oh, I really want to take off my mask right now because I think I could breathe more. And that's the other thing that people are saying. But at the same time, it's just the heat that makes you feel like you can't breathe, right? It's the heat. And like it's unbearable. We all hate it, but we do it.
Yeah, it irritates my nose, and then I start getting itchy on the inside, and then snot wants to come down because there's something pressing on my nose all the time. I was like, oh.
But see, at least the mask will catch all that snot, so it's great. Just let it flow.
Yeah. No, I just wipe it on other people, you know. So let's get into this this final girls conversation. So all 3 of you guys have been final girls in movies. I think Trista got killed in The Summoners. I know that she didn't make it in that one, but but I haven't made a movie with Sarah yet, so we have to change that soon, of course.
Apparently, I'm the only one on this list.
I know.
What the hell, Chris? Come on.
Well, I have yet to be in a movie with Christian where he directs it. So.
Yeah. Well, only Trista's had that honor. But I have art. Yeah, she's like, don't do it. But I did work with Sarah before we even knew each other. Well, I art directed a show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a silly show back in the mid 2000s. It can go unnamed unless you want to name it.
I actually heard that it's now on Amazon Prime and Hulu. Yes,
I did. I watched. I started watching some old episodes, going, "Oh, look at it," because I built all the sets and the graphics and all that with my friends. But that show's super cheesy.
What's the name of it?
Sarah, you can name it or not.
Okay, it's called.
Only if you want to.
It's called Sex Sent Me to the ER.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Watching that.
You're watching that?
So,
yeah, I've
crazy like stories on that.
Yeah. I art directed 3 seasons, about 45 episodes over the span of 2 years. So yeah, that was a wild, cheesy show. They wanted it.
they purposefully make it really cheesy.
Yeah.
Like the direction is always like bigger, bigger, more. Like it's like there's no subtlety, no subtlety at all in that one. You're going for very, very broad.
Yeah,
I'm always into it because it's like me and Brendan watch it and we're just like, is that gonna happen to us?
I had
drunk one night. Am I gonna break your penis in half? I don't know.
Stranger things have happened.
It is very possible. I made all of the X-rays for that show as well. So whenever someone had something shoved up any of their in their private parts, I had to make an X-ray and go, oh, okay, here's a handcuff key in a pelvic region. And so then I would show it to the doctor. We would always have a doctor on set that we would be interviewing. I'm like, hey, doc, let me see. Does this look good? And he's like, yeah, that looks good. So all the many different things I had to shove up people's orifices.
People like it. People like it. It's a thing.
Yeah. So Lara Jean, let's talk about being a final girl. I want to catch as much as I can with you because you're only going to be with us another maybe 10, 15 minutes. So what have your experiences been as a final girl, and how does it differ from other characters in this world?
Well, I've had the privilege of obviously being both. I've died and I've lived.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I do love, and what a lot of people that follow horror love about the final girl is, especially for women that watch it, and for me growing up watching it, is this idea that she can persevere and make it through all the shitty things that just got through, like she went through the past hour and a half, and here she is, like she's got it. She's gotten it. Unless you watch something like 47 Meters Down and you think you got there, and then all of a sudden a shark attacks you the last 5 minutes of the movie. But I guess are you trying? What's your question? Here's the specifics. Do you want to know what it's like to be a final girl in the sense of overall, or what it was like to just kind of be shooting as a final girl, filming, and being that character as a final girl?
Well, let's kind of go over what you think a good final girl is, and what is a problematic final girl.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I started.
It's a wide question, but
yeah, a good final girl, in the sense for me could be anything from, she can be psychotic, a crazy person, and a killer, or she can be the smarty pants, goody two shoes that saves the day, or she can be just the regular girl, and I think that's what's so cool about the final girl, right? The idea of that is there's this whole, she doesn't have to be perfect. The final girl isn't perfect. Sometimes the perfect girl isn't the final girl. And the final girl is the one that's troubled and is the one that's going through a lot of problems in her life already and has things going on in her life. And I think in that sense, that's where I always related to the final girl. And a lot of women to this day, I would say almost 100% of women always relate to the final girl, because they, there's just these constant ideas of life and what they go through and what they have gone through and the things they think about, whether it's a boyfriend trouble, a parents passing away, a grandparents going through something, somebody being sick, or somebody stalking them. I had a stalker once in college. That wasn't fun.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't.
If he's listening, I think he's a director now too.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just, and then somebody makes you psychotic. So something happens to you and makes you psychotic. So that's the other realm of it. That's the other realm of the final girl, is something pushes you to the limit to break down so much that you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to go on a spree. And to me, those are the best. Like, those are the best characters, is the ones that just have no qualms. They don't care about being judged. They just go for it. They know what they want, by, the middle of that movie or the middle of the book or the story. You see this gradual growth within them that make them stronger and make them just go, fuck it, let's go. Like, I don't care what happens to me at this point. I'm just going to do it. So yeah, for me, being the final girl and going through those processes, and a film coming out in a month, Serena waits. I have go through the same process where I feel like I need to be perfect, and these things happen to me, and that make me just go, ugh, like, fuck it. And it's such a, as being an actor in a final girl role, it is almost like going to the psychologist in a way. It's nice to just release and let everything out, and then you can go home and be like, that was refreshing. Like, I got to hit a sandbag with a baseball bat for 30 minutes. That was really fun. And then you go home and you're like, yeah, that was really cool. Like, I don't feel angry today. Like character.
You don't need to beat your wife tonight. I got it out earlier at work.
Exactly. And it's just like anybody that goes to the gym, like any female out there, like that goes kickboxing classes, goes to the gym and like punches that bag. It is so exhilarating to just let it go, and let it go in a healthy way. Like, I think that's why I turned to acting, I turned to performing, and I turned to contemporary dance and things like that, is because it allowed me to let go of my emotions and to speak my emotions in a healthier way. And I feel watching the movies, going back to horror and the final girl, when I was a kid, and I'd feel sad, and I feel like somebody was picking on me at school, or I got in an argument with my mom and dad or my sister, I would always watch a movie that involved a final girl of some sort. And obviously my favorite movie is Misery.
Yep.
But in some sense, she was great. I don't know. But in the sense of like the cheesy, like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, like those are my favorite campy movies growing up, and seeing Jennifer Love Hewitt like make it to the end. I'm like, if she's having a good day going through all that shit, I'm gonna go through a good day just having a simple argument with my mom. And it calmed me down, and it made me understand like there's certain things in life that aren't necessary. I shouldn't get angry over that. There's a lot more things I can get angry over. And that's what's great about horror. It just is like a release.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. That's great. Sarah, how about you? Like, how has it been for you to play Final Girls? And give me an example of one of your movies that your favorite Final Girl movie that you've been.
Oh boy. I feel like I play the final girl a lot, like in most of them. Most of them, I'm the final girl. So none of that, the one you said right off the bat, I'm the final girl. I'm a vigilante nun who fights for justice against the mob. So we did it first before Warrior Nun, which is now on Netflix.
Which I love, by the way. Great show.
I also did a film called Chupacabra Territory, which is, I guess, is very much more the like classic final girl. That was a found footage one, and 4 friends go off into the woods and they end up being stalked by a chupacabra, and all the rest of them die. And I was, the only one that made it out and the only one that left standing. So there's been
spoiler alert.
Spoiler, sorry. That's been out for a couple of years though, so if you haven't gotten around to it yet, then no biggie. But there's I feel like that kind of happens a lot with a lot of the roles that I play in horror films. I mean, it's either that or like the villain, which in some ways I feel like approaching the characters in these films, I feel like I kind of approach them all like they're all the final girl, because every woman is like going to persevere, going to do whatever she can do to get through this situation, and doesn't want to give up. And so regardless of if you're successful of that or not, that is really the only difference that makes you a final girl or not. So like, even if you don't make it all the way through, the character doesn't know that that's going to happen. And so like, you're going to approach it and do things the same way you would do, even if you're don't end up becoming the hero, depending on the outcome of the film. Yeah. And I also feel like that makes it, more interesting for the audience too. So that you're like, if you have a whole bunch of like strong women that are like kicking ass throughout the film, and you care about them, you want them to succeed, and then as the film goes on, then they get whittled down into, whoever's going to be the last one. Yeah. That the script says is the winner.
I want to go over to Trista, but I also want to make sure that Lara Jean, you have to leave in a little bit, right? So
yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, so let me throw one question at you, and then we'll continue on with everyone else as you make your way to your next podcast.
Thank you, Trista.
Thank you for carving out time to join us. It's great meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So Lara Jean, when it comes to let's talk about the female and male dynamic in horror films. The males are often always villains, and the females are often always the victims. What is it about that dynamic that is it from men, or usually in the past have been the ones to be the screenwriters or the directors? Is it a kind of a primal thing where it's strength? Like, male humans usually have a lot more testosterone and strength than females, or a lot more brooding, or a lot more evil. But what do you think is the reason for that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing when you said that, I'm like, well, you know me, Christian. I'm always out to be the freaking crazy psychomaniac that's brutal and the villain, and yep. So a lot of that's why I like to play a lot of different characters. So when you see my movies, it's I'm either or all of the above. Mm-hmm. I think it also just goes to past, and it all is history. And back in, when film was kind of first starting to get famous and things like that in silent films, you have to look at the era, and you have to look at the time. And women were considered to be these delicate creatures back then. And so when you had these silent films starting, and these, you had the King Kong and things like that, the woman was like, oh, no, and she like faints, and then the guy comes up behind her and like picks her up. And I think it's because that's how society also, like, not only women never really wanted to be that way, and I think at any time they were always striving to be higher than that. But society was telling them this is how you need to be, and I think film was taking that in, and because at that time there wasn't a lot of freedom to, and people were scared to be even more open with that. So I think you have a lot of these films where these women are, the weakest link, the weak, emotional character because of society. And what's great is you see when you start to watch all these films, and not only horror, all films, women start having more of a say, and more of a leading role, and more of the crazy psychotic character that you wish she'd be, or she's the smart one, or she's the leader and she's taking over. And it's brilliant how you see this. And obviously we want it to happen more so because it's not happening enough. But when I do see shows and movies where they have these amazing female leading roles, and I've been watching The Politician on Netflix, and that's one of them. And there's a lot of leading women on that show that are phenomenal. Bette Midler being one of them, obviously. But it's very. I think. It's exactly that. And I think society nowadays, there's still a lot of men out there that see women as the weakest link, and it's not going to change. It's just the way they grow up. It's the way they've lived. It's their background, how they're taught. And I think it's up to the people that want to show the opposite, and show that the opposite can happen, and that the woman there are, if you really look at history and you're thinking also like, oh, a woman can't be a molester. If you're really thinking about doing a movie on molestation or a movie on killing, there's a lot of women out there that do it too. And this is for anything in society and anything in type of jobs. Wherever there's a man there, there's a woman there too doing it. We just don't talk about it enough. Mm-hmm. And I think it's definitely up to the people like us that are interested in showing that, to try to get it out there more, because I think more people are interested in hearing about that. I have yet to see a movie where a woman is a huge, just the huge. Going back to the molestation thing, it's always a guy, molesting a girl, things like that, or that's killing a girl, or and it would be interesting to start reading up on history and reading up on where the women lies in these type of stories, and why was the woman what got her there, what got her to that point. And you'll be amazed how much men and women are very similar in all aspects of life. And I think that's just when people that's why when I see movies and it's like a typical movie where it's like, oh, the guy, like Texas Chainsaw, like the guy is up there, like, ugh. And in my mind, I'm like, I want to hold a chainsaw and run around and like scare people. Like, why can't it be me? Like, is it because I'm tiny? Is it because I'm 5 feet tall? You know what? Sometimes that's even creepier. I'm just gonna say, and like, we
don't see you coming.
Yeah, you don't see me coming. I'm like a little leprechaun running around, like, But it's that, and I think it also going to the directors, like, and the writers, going back again, like, there's less women directors, there's less women writers in this form of art, in horror and things like that. And I think the more a lot of the women directed horror films and things that I've been reading up on and things like that, they do that. They bring that forward. They bring more of that, those feminine characters that we rarely see. And I think that's just kind of where it starts. I think we need to have more of men be more open-minded to the fact that there's a lot of women in history and not in history, and whatever you want to write, fantasy, that women can take over as much as that type of male role could. Yeah. And that goes just with also with the LGBT community and things like that too. Like there's a lot of women out there that would believe that we don't even need a man on the screen. Sorry, Christian. Christian's like, damn it.
No, I prefer that.
On here, damn it.
I'll be just fine with that because I prefer to watch women on screen more than men.
But I could talk forever about that. I have like this whole thing. People are just gonna be like, not want to listen to me. And we're like, okay, shut up, Lara.
Well, we needed to make sure we packed you in before you move on to your next your next podcast. Do you need to go now?
No, I have a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I let them know that because they officially need me like around 6:10. So I was like,
oh, okay.
A few minutes. Yeah. Okay. And I'm all set up already, so I'm good.
Oh, good. So what always struck me about horror films, and when I started analyzing them, especially in college, was that when comedies, I went to college in the 90s, so comedies, action movies, mostly comedies and action movies, those were directly always men heroes saving females. It was rare to have a female villain, but the final person was always the man saving the woman. But horror films, and I wrote an essay about this in college, which I wish I probably have somewhere. But it's just how great horror films are because they show the female being the strongest one in the entire movie, and you can kind of see, you could say, okay, that we have a villain, and the villain is man. The villain's stronger than the female, so that's why he's the villain. And so, but the female's gonna overcome him. But it's not as much that. I mean, those characters her characters are usually a lot stronger and smarter, and just and they always win in the end. So that's what made horror amazing for me, because I really enjoyed watching that. So that's what I always connected with. And what do you think about that, Lara Jean?
Well, how do you feel if, like, And this goes with males. Like, how does it feel for males to always be considered the villain? You know what I mean? Like, to watch a movie and like be like, oh, why is a guy always the freaking, whatever? Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. So I feel like it does need to be more well-rounded for sure. And
I've known a lot of female villains, I'll tell you that much in my life.
Yeah, and I do agree with you on the fact that it's so great that they're open and that they're saying, oh, the woman is smarter and can persevere and being smarter than the man. Because in reality, sure, why not? Aren't we? We're smarter. Girls, how do you feel?
Yeah,
I'll
take that. I'll take that.
What girls lack in physical strength, they make up for in cunning and brains.
Yeah, perfect.
And it's unfortunate that like the history of the history of the female was usually they were left out of the education. The men always said, no, females are not allowed to go to college. You're not allowed to go to school. You just sit there and be dumb and make babies and make us
look
food.
Pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and the times are changing, and that's great that over the past 100 or so years, or especially the past 60, 70 years. So hopefully we can continue that, and men should not be afraid of that.
Yeah.
It's just that toxic, the toxic male shit that's it's always going to be there, but it just needs to be chipped away at in a few hundred more years, and
Yeah,
well,
I agree. And like the new thing now, I think, is having both man and female either win at the end or be a part of what's going on and or be that horrific couple. And I find that really cool as well, because it's like, okay, we're trying not to just do male and female, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
We're trying to show that it's both. And it can be both. And so I think that right now, I think that's where we're at. And it's all these like partnerships too, like these group partnerships. So you have like almost like gangs in a way, like you have the good gang and the bad gang. And it's quite fascinating. And I think Marvel also started that. And so it's kind of led its way, the comic book scene led its way into the horror scene, which is really cool. So we're seeing that kind of really, that dynamic crossover in these groups, which is really quite nice.
So Trista, now let's focus on Trista here.
Oh,
make sure we bring you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Bye to Trista, and Sarah, and like thank you so much, and Trista, thank you. I'm sorry, I will listen to everything you say afterwards.
Oh yeah, you don't have to. Thank you. It was great meeting you.
So bye, Laura. Bye, you guys.
Yeah, bye. Thank you, Trista. Tell us about your experiences being a final girl. Oh, that's a nice string.
I know.
That was
sorry.
very distracting.
Cat fur.
How empowering is it for you as a human to play a final girl and be? Oh, let me turn off my fan too. Hold on. Something I forgot to do. Yeah. So tell us how inspiring has it been for you, Trista, to play an empowering female character, and does it strengthen you in your real life?
Well, when I think of playing a final girl, I think of a film that I shot recently that I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it, but so I'll also talk about Echoes of Fear, which is my other big experience. These two films, I think, really I feel very final girly in. And
okay.
So Echoes of Fear. The way I approach a character, it's funny. Yes, she is the final girl, but I don't ever, the same way I never approach a character as like, oh, this is the villain, right? It's just like, it's just not that broad for me. Like, but in essence, like, yes, she is in peril, she survives.
Okay.
And for me, I think being a final girl is interesting because a lot of times people, I don't think necessarily would assume that I'm a final girl. I have sort of a delicate demeanor. I think I have a specific voice and my stature, and I'm not like a hugely aggressive person. And I think I just think I'm more covert, right? And how you were speaking about men always being the villains, I think in life men are just often more overt people. So, for instance, in Echoes of Fear, a lot of people describe my arc as sort of this timid woman who like finds her strength, and even the filmmakers define it that way. But for me personally, the decisions I made didn't really have to do with that. That wasn't really my arc because she was always strong. She was just underestimated. And that is something I definitely can relate to in my real life, where people just project things onto me because of the way I look or because of my manners or my mannerisms. And I think there's all kinds of strength, you know? And I think it's easy to judge people and underestimate people. And I think people can use that to their advantage.
Okay. So yeah, so you capitalize on the fact that you have a smaller demeanor, at least, and a smaller stature, and that you could sting.
Well, I don't know that
Sting
I
when they're not
capitalized
watching.
on it, but it's not something I'm escaping anytime soon. Like, so it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to use this to my advantage. Because to be frank, most of the times when I meet people after a screening of my film, very often people are like, oh my God, you're small. Like, people don't think I'm small on film. So it's not like I'm playing cute or coy and manipulating that way. But it's more of like, the same way humans are very complicated and complex, I think Final Girls are, you know, and I love the vast array of Final Girls. You know, I spoke to Mark Patton recently, and like he was the first, you know, like that's amazing to me. And like Lara was saying, like there are troubled women that are Final Girls. I think of Black Christmas, like she was having an abortion, you know, like that movie was really ahead of its time. And you know, a lot of times in trials in real life they want a perfect victim, and that's a great example of like, we're just people, right? If you're acting, if you're doing it appropriately, you're playing a person, and that person is flawed and trying to overcome things, like we all are, I think.
So when it comes to heroes and villains, it doesn't matter for you. You're just finding the motivation of that character, and whatever they do is just a manifestation of what that motivation is, or how do you?
Yes, 100% for me, because trust me, in real life I know a lot of assholes, and they don't normally think they're assholes, right? They feel very convicted. And if I'm going to play a character, I'm not going to judge the character. I've got to justify it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, Sarah, let's discuss the men versus women in horror films, and kind of the classic version of what we discussed with Lara Jean of men being the villain and females being the heroes in horror films at the very least, or the females are mostly the victims. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think, I mean, in addition to what Laura had said previously, one of the things that I was thinking of is I think it's really difficult for society to see men as victims, for men to be vulnerable, number one. That's just I mean, especially in America, because America's very like macho, like guys are guys. Well, and not just about Italian, also in Greek. And like there's a lot of cultures where like men are men and you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be in touch with your emotions. And even though you have them, it's always the like, tough it out, like pull through. And that's kind of bred into men in just as they're growing up in our society. So that ends up getting reflected into film. We don't see a lot of men that have, very long, eloquent speeches about what they're feeling. You see that for women a lot, but you very rarely see that for men. And I think seeing a man in a position of weakness is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. We're much more okay with seeing a woman being weak or a woman crying. But if you see a man doing those things, you have a different emotional reaction to that just based on how we've been conditioned by our society. Yeah. And I think you can even look at, take, for example, the Me Too movement. Like that has all been focused on women and women that have been abused. There are men that have been abused too, and that's something that's never been talked about, still not being talked about. And that's like, so that's in our society, it focuses on women are, even though this has been like a great movement to get the men that are doing the abusing out of power, there's been very little talk about women that have been abusers, to male or female victims. Either way, it's always been, men are the victims, or men are the abusers, and they're abusing women, and that there's that different power dynamic. So we're seeing that in our society, and then that's also being reflected in our films. And I also just feel like in society in general, men tend to have more power than women. That's just, going way back to women, trying to get equal rights and the right to vote, and like all of that struggle that's been there. Men just inherently are in more positions of power than women are. So we're used to seeing them as these overlord, stronger figures than women. And so it's film reflecting what we're seeing around us and what we've grown up with. And I think it's kind of sad, because if you have a male character in a film that's really being victimized and like really breaking down and crying and terrified, I feel like most people are just gonna laugh at that. Honestly, like if you had just a guy there that's just like, blubbering, people aren't going to take it seriously. You could, even perfect example, not even to that extent, but in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Leonardo DiCaprio, after he does that scene when he's in the Western with the little girl, and he's like so proud of himself for like doing this great job acting, and he kind of starts crying. When I saw that in the theater, people started laughing when they saw that. And I was like, why are people laughing about this? I mean, he's showing his emotion as a man for being proud of something that he's accomplished. Like that, to me, that's not something that you should laugh at, but that's how we've been conditioned.
Yeah, I think that scene probably gets laughed at because Tarantino has that like very skewed, tight, very fine-tuned humor in it, and so I guess I don't know if it was something that you brought in of knowing Leonardo DiCaprio over years. I mean, he's played sensitive characters, but there's that character has this ego, and so maybe people were laughing at the ego boost that he got. But you're laughing, and you're also going, yeah, that's cool. But it's still, there's a chuckle in there. Yeah. I think that's what I saw in that scene. Then there's a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, like you just brought up, Mark Patton's character, who gets very emotional. Trista, you brought it up. And so maybe that's why that movie's seen as a little bit maybe not the best Nightmare on Elm Street, because of his character's a lot weaker, and it's not. I mean, obviously, overall, it's not a great movie. I don't think, no matter what how you politicize it, but. I can see that. And then there's the Unforgiven, which I guess I'm guilty of. I never liked that movie. And maybe it's because I was always used to these macho westerns, the Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, where it was, Clint Eastwood and everybody was like, yeah, fucking I'll kill you. I don't give a shit. But then you watch that one, and it's a lot more of an emotional, like they're conflicted and they don't want to kill anybody and they just want to be good guys. And so I think that's what turned me off about that. So I guess I'm guilty of having that, like, oh, I want my cowboys to be tough, So,
you want your cowboys to be men.
Yeah, I want them to be men.
And that even goes straight into it, because what is like being a man? Like we have this perception of even what that means. Being a man means being macho, being tough. Like that's you know,
shooting guns.
Exactly.
Shooting guns and kicking your dog. Trista's like, what are you talking about?
I'm like, bye.
Yeah. And so Trista, can you elaborate on that at all about the male and female, the like Freddy Krueger, and there's a Nancy Thompson, and tell us about what you think. Why has that always been like that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I recently, this is not answering your question, but I recently did a Western, and it took place in the 1800s, and what excited me about this role was that my character is someone who was a prostitute to get by, but then got out of it, and then she's a real badass. She's a real cowboy. I'm not like riding on the back of like a guy. I'm not damsel in distress. Like, I learned how to ride the horses. I learned how to shoot the guns. Like, I hold my own in the film.
Cool.
And I'm not sure I would have been interested in the role if I were sort of just like the damsel in distress,
Yeah.
But your question was not that. Your question was, how do I feel about the males being the aggressors and the females being the victims? And I think, yeah, it's hard for me to. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone. I think, like I was saying earlier, there's all types of people, regardless of gender, but I do think in general, women are more subtle. Men are more overt. And so I think that translates to film. It's hard for me to, like, I'm definitely not the type of woman that plays a victim in real life or is interested in playing a victim on film. And what's a victim? Like, I think a lot of victims prefer to be called survivors, right? Like final girls. So like, obviously there's something to be said for going through trials and tribulations and getting through it. We can all relate to that. I think there's something to be said for, like, you want empathy, and maybe Sarah's right, maybe it's harder for men to derive empathy. Maybe it's easier to have empathy for females that are struggling in those ways. But these days, gender is so subjective. I think film and art will reflect this sort of gender revolution, and I hope so. Everyone deserves to be represented in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Sarah, when it comes to like a female villain or even a femme fatale, what usually comes down to is a woman, or even a revenge film, a woman will use sex as a weapon. And it's almost always that way. And I forgot what the term is for this seeing women discussing two women in a conversation where they only discuss men. What is it called? I forgot what it's called, but
I forget what it's called too.
Yeah, there's some sort of
like
theory.
A rule or you've accomplished this if you have two women that are talking about something that doesn't have to do with a man.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I forget what the name of that is, but yeah.
You finally achieved greatness because
Exactly.
it's most of the time it's in the past films were written by men, and it was always two women talking about men. But so when it comes to sex, why is it that women women characters in films always have sex as a weapon? Is it just because the men are writing these scripts that we've known to love in these movies?
I think that is part of it, because I feel like in scripts that you read that are written by women or directed by women, tends to be less sex or less overt sexuality, because women can still be sexy without being like aggressively sexual. Like that's different things. But I feel like so I think that is one part of it, but I also think it's as we were talking earlier, men naturally, just due to the physiology of their build, are stronger. So when women are going to manipulate or dominate men, they have to use something else except for their strength in order to get that and do that. And so part of that is the mind and being smarter or more clever and using all the tools that you have in your toolbox. And sexuality is one of those tools.
And men are weak. Men are weak, and they need to, okay, so that makes sense.
So
okay.
I think it's a little bit of both, and like and I do feel like it's, again, that's something that is reflected in life a bit as well. Not to say that women are not aggressively sexual in life, because they absolutely are. Yeah. But at the same time, there is this perception in society that men are supposed to chase women and men are supposed to pursue women, and they're like this, sexy object that you're conquering, and that's like a quest to get them. And so that's something that women can use to get power over men, because it's something that men want.
Okay.
It's something, it's at least it's a perception that we have in our society, and obviously that varies to different degrees with different men, because some men are all about that. They're with different women every night. They're on the prowl, and any woman that is like sexually aggressive to that man is going to get that man, and that's not going to work for every single man. So, but
I guess this all comes from it doesn't all come from it, but Christina Klebe and I have discussed this a few times, where she was like, I wish I could play a villain that didn't use sex as a weapon. Like you look at Species, or you look at I Spit on Your Grave, where the original, where she uses sex as to lure men in and to kill them. It's rare.
Mercy is a good example of that. We were just talking about with
Mercy.
Yeah, Laura's favorite horror movie. She
doesn't Misery, you mean?
Misery, sorry. Yeah.
Mercy, huh?
Mercy.
Hey. Mercy, man.
Mercy. No, Misery. Yeah. She doesn't really, I don't think she uses sex. But and she's definitely the villain.
Yeah.
So she's
true.
not.
Yeah.
There's one example. We found one.
Yeah, I think so. But she's kind of in love with him, or she's forcing him to write. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time either.
Yeah,
she was fortunate enough to find him unconscious and tie him up. That's the thing.
There we
go. She didn't have to lure him. He's kind of at her mercy.
She just happened.
They could have called it Mercy, really.
Trista, what do you think of this? I think Sarah brought up a good. That's a good point.
I think it sells tickets. I think sex sells.
Okay.
So I think people want to watch it. So I get why it's in there, but I also understand wanting to play a character who doesn't have to use sex as a weapon. I think it's it can be cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and have you guys had to do that, where you've played characters that use sex as a weapon?
For sure.
I have, and I loved it, actually.
Yeah.
But it's not something I do all the time, and I took a lot of time before I committed to doing the project, and I actually just loved the character. It's not something I do in my real life at all, but I love that you're laughing as if like no woman uses sex as a weapon. But it's not. I don't use sex to my advantage in real life. That's not something I would do. But in this film, I play a serial killer, and so I really fell in love with the character, and that was just one part of her, right? It wasn't. I wasn't showing up in Purgatory Road.
Okay, yeah, I still need to see it.
The movie wasn't about my body or me showing up for the day naked. Like it's just one part of a bigger story, and that is why it made sense for me personally to do it.
Okay, yeah, and how do you guys think the final girl should go going forward? Like, is there a development of that kind of that archetype? Can it be maybe it's a gender neutral final? What will be the next thing?
Final person.
Final
gender
person.
they, a gender they. Yeah, what do you think?
That's hard to kind of determine because I feel like there have been so many different iterations of the final girl. It's that's really hard to like, where is it going to go? Because what hasn't been done yet? Because I kind of feel like almost everything has been done yet. The film that I thought did a really good job about adding like nuances to the final girl was is it called You're Next, where they had the masks?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I thought like that one was awesome because she was the final girl, but she wasn't a victim. She was an aggressor, and like she was the badass that was gonna lay the traps for everyone. So like I loved like that take on the final girl, and I thought that was refreshing because a lot of the time the final girl is not necessarily in control of her own destiny. She's very reactionary and just trying to survive and like get, oh my God, don't kill me. Oh my God, don't kill me. And somehow like stumbles to surviving. Yeah. But I much prefer the proactive final girl that's like gonna, take care of this shit. But I think as far as that trope in films, it's not something that's ever going to go away, but I can't really think of any way that it would be like a new iteration of it. Because we've had wide varieties of different types of final girls. We've had final guys, we've had final couples. So yeah, I feel like we've kind of done everything there is to do when it comes to final girls.
We might as well quit then, right?
Yeah, I hope that's not the case.
That's the great spirit.
I'm out of a job. Have you seen Hush?
I did. Yeah, I did see Hush. That was great.
That's a great example, I think, of a really empowered final girl, and one with a, I hate to say disability because I don't think deaf people consider themselves to be disabled, but I'd like to see more of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and you played a deaf person in The Human Race.
I did, thank you.
And Sarah,
I just mentioned that so you would plug it.
Yes. And Sarah, you're taking classes to learn sign language.
Yeah, I'm learning sign language like in real life, so I can speak correctly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Trista, you did learn some. Do you remember all of your sign?
I learned enough to be pretty fluent actually, but I haven't retained much of it, which is really sad. I wish I did. Yeah, it's a bummer, but when you're out of practice.
Yeah.
But I loved the experience. I love the deaf community. You're right. That's probably why part of why I loved Hush so much. It's a beautiful, beautiful language and a very fascinating community. And by and large, they don't consider themselves disabled. They just communicate differently,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That movie really, it's so simple and it stretches out. I mean, just from this one dude outside the house.
One location.
He's not even trying to get in. And it's one chick inside of a house, and she's just going, how the fuck do I get rid of this guy or survive this night because he keeps fucking with me? And the way that they did it, it doesn't drag. It doesn't, it's just intense the entire time. And it has these little moments where you go, oh, okay, this. She continually goes, wait a second, I'm going to be fucking empowered. Fuck this guy. And she finally gets to that point. She goes all the way to the brink, and then she's like, wait a second, now I'm remembering who I should be. So, but yeah, that was a great movie. Mike Flanagan, of course. Yes. The now great Mike Flanagan. So when it came to making The Human Race, which was almost like a what's the movie, battle royale, Hunger Games, yeah. How did you turn off the hearing Like your brain not being able to hear?
What? A couple things, a lot of things. So, unfortunately for the film, we were having constant delays due to money, right? That's what holds up any independent film. But it worked out really great for me because I kept having more and more time to work on the film. So at first, I just had like 2 coaches, and I had my lines, and I thought that's all I was going to have time to learn. But because the film kept getting postponed, I was like, oh, great, I could take online classes. There's free classes online. I can learn the language. I found deaf churches. I started going to deaf church every Sunday just to see how deaf people communicate and interact. And then by sheer coincidence, I was also doing a play at the same time. And in the play was a deaf man, an amazing deaf man who in real life is also a drag queen. He like hears, he feels the music, the vibrations. And at the same time, his interpreter dropped out. So at the same time that I'm sort of learning all of this stuff, I just started helping this person because the director of the play was not going out of his way to communicate the direction. And it was a big ensemble piece, so he was sort of confused a lot of the time. And I happened to be studying, and he was very helpful in that. You know, he would correct me, but appreciate that I was trying. So all of these things, but also I didn't listen to music. I really refrained from music for months and months while I was prepping for the film. And then I was in an elevator or something, and some terrible cheesy pop song came on, and I just started bawling. And it was very embarrassing because it was like something I would never listen to or have an emotional reaction. But from being withdrawn from music for so long, and not that I missed it because I adapted really, but then I had this very visceral reaction.
It was out of joy?
It was out of maybe joy, maybe just remembering music, just being overwhelmed. You know, to this day, if I go see a show and like an opera and people are singing, I'll just start crying. It's almost like when you do yoga and you're in a pose and like it's like in your hips or something and stuff is, maybe I'm just a basket case, guys. But just like someone singing for some reason, even though I don't even like musical theater, to be honest with you, but there's something very raw and from the tummy and guttural and beautiful about it, and it affects.
Yeah, I get that. No, I get that. I get kind of teary-eyed sometimes when it comes to those kind of things where somebody is expressing great joy or just being amazing at something and expressing that perfectly. So yeah, it's not, you're not a basket case, Trista.
No, it fills you up. I mean, that's the whole point of music and film and art in general, is that it to elicit an emotional reaction. So yeah, I totally agree with you. When you're listening to something, you're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and you just start like crying because it's just like fills you up with so much emotion. It's great.
I wish it had been a better song. It was something really embarrassing.
What song? Do you remember what it was?
No, I really wish, but it was like Kelly Clarkson, like some sort of like weird pop music where I just started bawling and people in the elevator were like,
Was it Because of You I Learned to Walk on the Sidewalk?
I don't know. I don't even remember. But something like really overtly poppy.
Yeah.
Just like blubbering over it.
All right, so I think it's time to wrap this up. I appreciate both you guys coming on. Sarah, tell us what is coming out soon that we can look out for, or anything that's streaming that we might want to watch you on.
So I have a bunch of stuff that's currently available on Amazon Prime. There's like, I think like 10 or 12 films that are on there right now.
Ooh, wow.
So if you want to see any of my stuff, I think the easiest thing to do is just to go to my website, sarahnicklin.com, because what I've basically done is created like a film catalog of where you can go and watch everything that's available. So you can sort it by like platform if you have Prime, and you can see like all the films that are on Prime or Netflix or like whatever you want to look at.
I'll be doing that tonight.
So that's all there. Yeah, so I had that film that I just worked on last week, The Retaliators, was supposed to have a theatrical release this October, but who knows, what's going to happen with that, with COVID and theaters being shut down and everything. So yeah, I would say pretty much I'm going to direct people just to like social media. Yeah. SarahNicklin.com. That'll be the latest like up-to-date stuff.
Everyone follow Sarah Nicklin and Trista Robinson. So Trista, tell us where we can find all of your movies and whatever new projects you have coming out.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm hugely impressed by Sarah. I do not have a website or like a film catalog by platform. That's amazing. What? But I do, like, recent releases are Purgatory Road, Echoes of Fear, Human Zoo. Those are all out there and available for people to watch. Please do. I would love that. I also do a weekly horror podcast. It's live, and it's video or audio, whatever you prefer. And that is on Thursdays, and it's Without Your Head. So please check that out. And then I post updates on my work on Facebook and Twitter, Trista Robinson.
Excellent. All right. Thank you guys so much. Continue to stay safe. I will see you both soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.